Alright, so Alex Pereira has lost his belt to Magomed Ankalaev at UFC 313, and I think this is actually good for him because it opens up a lot more opportunities than if he had actually won that fight against Ankalaev. Whether it's a move up to heavyweight or some more fun fights against guys like Yuri Prochazka and Khalil Roundtree Jr., I think this will actually be good for him. Anyway, let me know what you guys think Pereira should do next, and while you're down there, I'd appreciate if you could like, subscribe. I think we're really close to 570 subs. Anyway, let me get into it. Now, the most obvious next step for Alex Pereira is going to be that Magomed Ankalaev rematch. It's also the most likely since Dana White said it's probably going to happen. But in my opinion, I don't think they should do this fight next. It doesn't really make sense when you think about it, okay? I understand a lot of people were saying that it's a robbery, but I feel like this clearly was not a robbery. It's just a lot of Pereira fans deluding themselves that it was. But regardless, it was a pretty close fight. But the issue with Pereira in this fight that a lot of people were talking about was his timidness and his confidence. So it doesn't really make sense for this guy who wasn't confident in the first fight to immediately rematch like months later. People are talking about Abu Dhabi, which is in October, in like 5 months. It doesn't really make much sense to immediately put Pereira back in there with Ankalaev after he already wasn't confident and is most likely going to be even less confident in the rematch considering he just lost this one. I mean, if you saw it after the belt, the guy was about to cry. It doesn't really make sense to immediately put him back in there, but I don't really mind that fight happening. I just don't think it's a very good fight, and it's not a very good idea for the UFC either. And I just think this whole situation is going to be very similar to Dricus du Plessis and Sean Strickland, where the first fight, everyone was saying was a robbery, it was a very close fight, and everyone was saying, oh man, bro, we need the rematch immediately, we need the rematch. And then, like, when it actually happens, literally nobody cares. I think it's going to be very similar just because a big part of the intrigue for this matchup was whether Alex Pereira was going to be able to deal with the wrestling of Magomed Ankalaev. And, you know, if Magomed Ankalaev was going to be able to deal with the striking of Alex Pereira, you know, there was always going to be that chance of Alex Pereira going out there and KOing Magomed Ankalaev. But now we've seen it, I don't really think anyone thinks that Alex Pereira is going to go out there and like flying knee Ankalaev in the first round. Like, especially considering Alex Pereira was the guy to sell that matchup in the first place. And his performance the first time was basically just spamming calf kicks and running away for 20 minutes. I don't really think people are going to be as hyped to see this fight again. Like, when it comes around, I think now obviously people want to see it just because of how close it was. But I think people are just going to forget, okay? People forget, man. People forget, okay? By the time it actually happens, I don't think anyone's going to really care that much about this fight. I really don't mind that fight happening next. I just don't think it makes as much sense as everyone thinks it does. Just because the first fight is close. I think if anything, it's going to be also like Sean Strickland versus Dricus du Plessis, where Ankalaev is most likely just going to be even better because the guy's going to be even more confident with the belt now. And also, like, he's seen that he can outstrike Alex Pereira. He's probably going to try and do it again. So if Alex Pereira does choose to stay at light heavyweight, I'd rather not see that fight next, and if they do really want to make that fight, I think they should at least give Alex Pereira one more fight. Just because the guy is so active anyway, he could probably get one more fight in before Ankalaev decides to make a title defense anyway. So I think Alex Pereira should just fight a guy who is very entertaining and he can knock out, okay? Just someone who's going to stand there and strike with him, not someone like, you know, a Rakic or Jan Blachowicz. I think they should give him, you know, Yuri Prochazka said he wants to do a third fight, or they could give him Carlos Ulberg, whether he wins or loses. I think that doesn't really matter because the Carlos Ulberg fight, I think that would be a very good fight. I would rather see that and see Alex Pereira maybe get a KO or at least have a fun fight rather than immediately rushing him to Ankalaev. And if he does lose that fight against Yuri or Ulberg, then, you know, at least he didn't lose to Ankalaev, okay? At least he might get, like, flatlined in a entertaining way, you know? So I think at light heavyweight, I think that's probably the thing that makes the most sense for Pereira next, you know, because, again, I think he needs to rebuild his confidence. I think that was probably the biggest thing because he looked so timid in there against Ankalaev. If he goes out there, he KOs Yuri Prochazka, he goes out there, KOs Carlos Ulberg, it's going to give him so much confidence in the rematch. It's going to make it so much easier to sell that as well. Because again, I really do not see anyone actually caring about this if this happens again. But if he goes out there, KOs Carlos Ulberg, KOs Yuri Prochazka, it's going to make it so much more interesting because Alex Pereira will seem like he still has it. But that's if he chooses to stay at light heavyweight, which in my opinion, I don't really think he should do. The guy is old and he's done everything he can at light heavyweight. I mean, he's one of the greatest light heavyweights ever. Like, that's not really debatable. He's definitely up there. And I think Ankalaev was the only guy he really needed to beat if he wanted to go to heavyweight anyway. And now he's lost to him. It's kind of just a big risk if he goes out there and fights him again and then loses. It's like, he's already, I think he's like 37, 38. You're already getting up there in age. You might as well just go up to heavyweight right now rather than risking another loss because he doesn't have anything to prove. He's clearly one of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. He has a bunch of title defenses. I don't think beating Ankalaev again really does that much for his legacy. Obviously, it's a good look if he beats Ankalaev again, considering he's the guy who beat him at light heavyweight, but still, I don't really see much point in doing that fight again. I would much rather see him go up to heavyweight, because I think there's a lot of fun matchups for heavyweight, very winnable matchups too, okay? I think the most likely matchups for him will either be Cyril Gane or Sergey Pavlovich. I really doubt that they're going to give him guys like Curtis Blades and Jelton Almeida who are going to wrestle him. I mean, for obvious reasons, I really don't think they'd do that. And on top of that, I don't think they'd give him Volkov either, even though I think that would be a good fight. And I still think that's probably likely, just because I don't think that Cyril Gane or Sergey Pavlovich will accept a fight with Alex Pereira, just because, you know, they are the way they are. But look, Volkov, he's probably just going to fight anybody. But I don't think they'd give him that matchup, just because I think Volkov would maybe win that fight, and I think he just has a very good chance, because I think Volkov most likely would just wrestle. That's like probably what the UFC thinks he's going to do. There's no way Volkov is going to strike with Alex Pereira. He's going to immediately wrestle, because he's a smart guy. That's most likely what he's going to do. But with the Cyril Gane fight, I think that is the most unlikely to happen, just because Cyril Gane is like one of the biggest ducks ever. This guy will refuse to fight anybody if it's not for the title or you're just an absolute blob, okay? This guy just will not fight anyone actually good. Obviously, he fought Volkov, but he already beat Volkov. That's like the only reason he fought him. I don't think he's gonna fight anyone good, to be honest, until he like gets a title shot. That's it. But I do think if this fight does happen, I think it's going to be a very good fight, and Cyril Gane might take this fight, because I do think this is a winnable fight for both guys here, and I think Cyril Gane definitely has a good chance, especially after the way Ankalaev beat him. So I think this is a winnable fight for both guys. On top of that, Alex Pereira is obviously probably going to be the better striker here. I'm not going to say obviously. I think he probably will be the better striker, and I think this is a very good matchup for him as well, considering Cyril Gane, he doesn't really have the most power. It's unlikely that he's going to knock out Pereira or anything. He is very fast, but more importantly, the guy's a striker, okay? This is going to be a striking fight. Even though Gane showed pretty decent wrestling against Volkov, I really don't think he's going to use it against Pereira, just because Pereira had really good takedown defense against Ankalaev. I don't think Gane is going to be the guy to just take this guy down and absolutely maul him. Maybe he will, who knows, but I think Gane is a very good fight for Alex Pereira. And then the Sergey Pavlovich fight, I think this is more likely. At the same time, I think it's less likely. I don't think the UFC is going to want to do that, just because Pavlovich has gotten like really boring recently, so I don't know if they'll give him that fight immediately. They probably want Pavlovich to get at least one more win before he fights a star like Alex Pereira, you know. But the thing is with this fight is that even though Sergey Pavlovich does have a lot of power, again, he's gotten really boring recently. He might actually just try to wrestle Pereira as well, but I don't know if he'll be able to do that, just because, again, Pavlovich has also been a very scared guy recently. He just does not really want to exchange. And Alex Pereira definitely has a chance to just pick him apart from the outside. Same way kind of Volkov did, but I think Alex Pereira is probably way better than Volkov in the striking. And he should just be able to pick apart Pavlovich fairly easily. Again, I think Pavlovich could get the KO here as well, but, you know, who really knows? But again, this is a pretty winnable matchup for Alex as well. I think this is a really good matchup, and they probably should do this next. So if Alex Pereira is able to beat either of those guys, he's most likely going to get an immediate title shot after that, okay? And the thing is, the reason that this makes it so much better than beating Ankalaev, because again, beating Ankalaev is kind of a big risk, so he doesn't really have to do that. He can just beat a guy who is fairly beatable, fight him in like a striking match, and probably win. Like, and on top of that, he doesn't have to wait for Jones Aspinall, okay? Because he's just going to be a contender. Because if he's the champ of light heavyweight, it's not like he's going to have to go and fight Volkov to get #1 contendership. That's not really going to happen, okay? He can stay active, he can do whatever he wants at heavyweight. He doesn't really have to wait for Jones Aspinall to happen. But as for Aspinall and Jones, I think Aspinall would probably flatline Pereira, okay? I mean, Ankalaev was landing on him pretty easily, and again, Aspinall is a very smart guy, and on top of that, he's a way better wrestler too. I think Aspinall, if he really wanted to, he probably could take down Alex Pereira and, you know, submit him if he like really wanted to. And on top of that, I think he'd probably be able to outstrike Alex Pereira. Maybe not outstrike him fully, but I definitely think he'd be able to get the KO, just because, again, he has so much more power than Ankalaev and so much more speed. I think he'd most likely be able to catch Alex Pereira at least once in that fight. And then as for John Jones, this might be ridiculous, but I do think John Jones would probably beat Alex Pereira very easily, like almost like ridiculously easy, okay? Because John Jones is a very smart guy. His IQ is insane. His fight IQ at least is insane. The rest of IQ is really not there. But look, his fight IQ is very, very high. I think he just replicate Ankalaev's game plan perfectly. Probably even better than Ankalaev did. Stay in southpaw, just pressure him over and over. Probably take him down and just submit him or something, ground and pound him. I think John Jones would probably win that fight fairly easily too, so I don't really see Alex Pereira winning the title at heavyweight, but just fighting for a title in 3 different divisions is very impressive alone, so I think Alex Pereira should just go up to heavyweight immediately. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Thanks for watching, like, subscribe, alright.